Hello everybody. This is the Excel video and it's the third of our videos for class 3. I apologize that it's a day late. I was having some technical difficulties and also from like last Thursday through Easter I was sick, so I apologize. I'm a little bit behind schedule. What I'm thinking of doing though is, because I am late, I don't want to hold you guys accountable for me being late. So I'm going to give you this homework, which is the Excel spreadsheet, until Wednesday at 11:55 at night to complete. That'll mean that we'll even have a chance at our next class, which is a face-to-face, to talk about this if you have some questions. But I would not wait. If I were you, I would try to do as much as I can before. Also, in the other video, there was a YouTube Excel YouTube that you could go to get some Excel basics. So here we go. When you get your homework on the Excel spreadsheet, it'll look like this Excel spreadsheet. It'll be in Moodle and you can download it. The name of the clinic will have changed, but it'll be set up just like this, and some of the all the numbers will have changed. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a budgeted 12-month in calendar year 2012 budget for the balance sheet and the statement of operations and a statement of cash flow. Now, how we're going to do this is you'll have these right here, 10 and 11, are full years. And you'll have this in the homework assignment too. You'll have 2 full years set up exactly like this. Now you'll notice on the bottom, on the bottom down here, there's also, you've got this is our sheet with the financial statements. Then there's, if you click right there, you've got an assumption sheet. You'll have the same thing in the homework assignment. And you're going to use these assumptions right here to go ahead and build the financial statements. So let's go ahead and get started. First, let's go to our assumption sheet and see what the first assumption is. It says, assume fiscal year starts in January 2012. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of these and try to build the financial statements from this. And I'll show you what I'll do first. So it says it starts January 1, 2012, and we know it's a monthly statement for 12 months. So let's go back here and just type in January 2012 right there in that cell block. And I'm going to go to my home, use my format, and just, whoops, you know why I did that? Because it's changing it to a number format instead of a date format. So I'm going to go right back. I'm going to hit escape, and I'm just going to say I'm going to make that bold like that, and I'm going to use this one right, where is it? Right there. And then if you see this, if you notice in each cell in Excel, there's that little button right when it goes to the crosshairs you can pull. And notice how Excel's smart enough just to change the month for us all the way through. And again, we said this would be 1 year, so we'll bring it right like that. And there you go. I think that is assumption 1. And I'll just highlight it in yellow, meaning that I think I've finished that one, so I'll know that I've finished that one item. Okay. Now it says assume that March 1, 2012, Sunnyvale purchases land that they plan to use in the future for a parking lot at a cost of $100,000. Okay, now as we get started, remember our financial statements. We've got our balance sheet, our statement of operations, which is our income statement, and then our statement of cash flow. Now I'll give you a little hint. The statement of cash flow is going to be pretty much all based on formulas because it shows different results of what happened in the balance sheet and the income statement. So when we're doing what we're doing right now is we're going to be working on the balance sheet and the income statement. Now if we go back there, so it said in March they had an addition of $100,000. Well, that's a fixed asset addition. So I would assume it's going to go in here. And they said it's in March, so I'm going to go to the March. And just for right now, I'm going to put $100,000. Now, notice I did something here. I put it in as $100,000. But this sheet is in thousands. So that means it's really just 100, okay? And I think on the assumption sheet, I talk about that somewhere. Yes, right here. Remember, the statements are in thousands. Okay. Well, I know that land, so they're adding in $100,000 there. So this was my balance at the end of the year. I'm going to assume that it was this. I'm going to assume for our budget that it was the only change is going to be this addition of 100,000. So I can do one of two things. I can reference this cell because I don't think it's going to change, and then bring it all the way over to here because it'll always be now this one you'll notice is referencing this cell because it stayed the same. Now I could just go like this, copy, and what we could do is go all the way down and just override the 100 and go paste, and there it is. So the same number, but in March, if I go right to here and go ahead and put in the equal sign, and I'm going to plus 100. So there we go. Now, because I did it this way, and I carried the number all the way across, these are now all wrong because we know we've added in 100. So we really should change this and make that like that. So that is one line item on our balance sheet that is complete. Again, we were at 2954, added in the 100, and it just stayed that way all the way through. Okay. So I am going to yellow that one out. Okay, the next assumption. I think we're jumping around here from the balance sheet to the income statement. It says all staff received a 3% raise on January 1, 2012, and the benefits will also go up 3%. So let's take a look and see what we mean by that. Now, if we remember, salaries from our classwork are on the income statement. So here's your salary and benefit. And it's going to go up 3%. So why don't let me see here. You're going to go 3% out. Now we're still doing a monthly statement. So I can't just take this by 3% and get what it's going to be because that'll have a year's worth of salary in every cell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little formula in there. I'm going to go like this. Take this cell, divide it by 12, and multiply it by 0.03. And I get, that's what that is. That's very good. So now just so that you can see this in this contract, it doesn't matter with this. I'll put it brackets around it. So I'm dividing the annual amount by 12. You can see that right here. The C44, that's cell C44, dividing it by 12, and then I'm multiplying it by 3% because I want to have it by 3%. But I just noticed I made a mistake. I apologize. It should be 1.03. There we go. I apologize because the 3% would just be 3%. I have to make it go up by 3%. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and drag that all the way over until December. Now what I'm going to do to make my life a little easier, I'm going to put it in so that these things on top always stay there and the ones to the left are always there. It's called the freezing of the frame. And I'm going to do it over here and do this right there. See, now I'll always see on top and I'll always see what's on the left. So it has you that. There we go. So there we go. Now one thing I'm going to do too, I'm going to make this not a dollar. Well, this one can be a dollar sign because it's the top of our header of a dollar sign. but we're going to make it without the cents. There we go. Now, why didn't that work? Oh my gosh. Very simply, why? Because we did not anchor the cell. Because right now, if you go to this cell, it's taking this by 1.3 and then this by 1.3. We need to always take this one. And to do that, we have to call anchor the cell. If you go right into there, where the cell is at C44, we don't want to change. And we put in the anchor symbol, if you remember that from your Excel classes, put that in there. Now, when I go over one, see, if you look in here, it didn't change. It stayed at C44. It'll always be taking that. I'll go all the way across. So there we go. So there, that is it for assumption number 3. Now, assume that the patient revenue increases 1% each month for the first 6 months, then remains flat for the rest of the year. Okay, let me see. Now, they're talking about patient revenue, and it's going to increase each month for the first 6 months. Okay, that's a good assumption. Let's see if that's going to work. Now, what I like doing is, every once in a while, saving so that I don't lose what we've done. Okay, now it's at patient revenue, right here, patient revenue. So we're going to need a formula in there again, and it's going to go up, again, 1%. So let's do the same thing. You can do plus or equal. The plus goes back to my old Lotus days. That's how Lotus used to do it. That was pre-Excel. That's how old I am. So let's do this. Take that, divide by 12, right? Multiply it by 1.01 because it's going up 1%. See what we get. Now, let's see here. Let me see here. So, we want to, I'll put these brackets around it again. This is more for your, it's more for your use than mine. And I'll just be sure we demonstrate it right there. And okay, now that means that for the first month it went up from my prior month. I just took that and divided by 12 and said it went up 1%. Now, should I think the assumption said that it's supposed to increase 1% each month. And I think that means, and I know it means, from the prior month. So this cell block would be this times 1.01. And I could actually keep that going for the first 6 months. And then it's just going to remain flat at that same amount all the way to the end. There we go. Okay, now we said we were going to get rid of the cents. We can do that just by going like that. Okay, so there we go. Let's just see this for reasonableness. If you notice, if I highlight all this, those are all the 12 months. I can see my balance, 157,407, and it was 150. That looks like that's the right number to me. Okay, increasing 1% each of these months consecutively, and then remaining the same. Okay, great. So let's go and look at our assumptions. So that is that one. Okay. All other revenue, operating revenue, is to remain the same for all the whole fiscal year, and it can be divided evenly. Okay, let's go here. So it's saying that I can assume for our budget purposes, because we've went around, we're doing a budget, remember, for this organization, and we said to the other managers, what do you think this is going to be? You think it's going to change? And this is what they told us. They thought it would go up 1% for a while and then be flat. They'd buy $100,000 of parking lot land, and they said these other ones would remain the same. So let's go over here, divide by 12, go over here, divide by 12, and let's just put these in, get rid of those decimal points. Okay, now we need to do one of two things. I'm going to anchor this and give you a little shortcut. If you highlight just the cells that you want to be anchored and you press the F4 key, it automatically puts those dollar signs in there for you. And I'm going to do that here too. Go like this and say F4. Put them in there, and there we go. And let's bring that right across. See how that works. Good. It remained the same. And that's it. Now, these, I'm going to let you go ahead and do this. In here, I already built a nice little cell that sums what needs to be summed for the revenue. So we're going to, I'll show you it. See, it says sum equals C38 through C40. And since I've already put that in there for you, and it's formatted, we can just take that with the little crosshairs right there and drag it across, and there we go. Look at that. Our revenue and our budget's already complete. Excellent. So let's look at our next assumption. Okay, this one we can highlight. Say we've done it. It says contributions drop from 243 to 220 and are paid in 4 equal amounts at the end of each quarter. Okay, so they drop to, contributions drop to 220. Okay, let's look at that. So, contributions are right here. We know they're going to drop to 220, and it said they'd be paid quarterly, so that means I'm not going to have anything in January or February, but a quarter of 220 is, I think, 55. So that's what's going to happen each quarter. And we'll just copy that and paste. And copy this and paste. And let's see, does this now equal, if I look at it, yep, 220. You know, since we're doing this, why don't we, because we know that the statement of operations is cumulative for the year, why don't we put a little total column here? We can't have a total for the balance sheet because remember that's a snapshot in time and it is what it is at the end of December. You don't total up your balance sheet. So we're just going to put that there like that. I'm going to use this auto sum, which will go everything. If there was a formula here, it would have stopped, but we're just going to go like that. Hit enter, and look at that. I've got my total there. Bring this is going to add up this way, and there's my total. We said we didn't want these in dollars. I'm sorry, so we'll just go like that and get rid of that, like that. Okay, we don't need that in dollars. We should use them in comma. And these are just formatting stuff that I'm doing right now. And again, I'll use my added sum, but just say this piece. There we go. Okay. Now we have a nice total column. I might as well try, since I'm doing this right now, I can use the same column, go like this, okay, and format it so that it'll be 0, and go, whoops, down to here. Take this. I'm just doing some formatting and bringing things over to make our life a little easier. These are all formula fed things, so we can just copy these all the way. Whoops, whoops. Just missed the crosshairs there. There we go. Oh, what did we got? Oh, this is the total here, yes. So we can copy this cell. So you can do this a lot of different ways. Let's just copy this cell to here and here. Paste. Now it looks like this is a formula too, so we can copy this across. Okay, so this is we're building our our income statement pretty quickly here, and I'll just make this bold and center it. There we go. Okay. So we were back. We were doing this, and notice formatting is important, believe it or not, especially with financial statements, the way you look at things. So this line, the way I had set it up is with a $sign. So we're going to go ahead and click that and get rid of the 2 zeros by making it like that. So that way it looks good. Okay. There we go. Now let's go back to our assumption. So we did this contribution. That is done. Investment income is calculated based on assumptions 11 and 12. What was 11 and 12? You know what? Then let's just skip that one and see what we can get down to those. It says supplies are variable cost and will remain the same percent of patient revenue. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? Variable cost. Variable costs are costs that go up or down dependent on another item, like the number of visits you have. If you're making widgets, the number of widgets you have. A good example of a variable cost would be the supplies you use for every office visit. If you have no office visits, you don't have any cost. If you've got 100, you have a certain amount. If you have 1,000, you have more. And it really doesn't change very much per visit, but will pretty much stay the same. And this is a key concept that we'll be doing in the next few chapters. So I want to introduce it here a little bit. So variable costs remain the same. So why don't we see what our variable cost is now, and then you come up with a percent, and let's have it stay the same. Let's go back here. Okay, so here's my supplies in 2011, and it said the same percent of the net patient service. Ooh, a little misspelling there. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so now I am just going to do this down here. I'm going to go like this. Sales as percent of patient rev, and go here. I'm going to do my little cell block. I'm going to take that, scroll up, take this, divide it by my patient revenue, and I get this. Now I can go ahead and make it fancy and change it to a percent and give it a couple more decimals. There, 13.7%. So I'm going to leave that there, okay? Okay, now it said that, so it's going to remain the same. Now, did we already calculate patient? Yes, we did. So we can do our supplies line, because it'll be the same percent of the revenue. So if I take my revenue account times my percent over here that I'd say is going to stay the same all year, and just multiply it out, I get that number. And that should be my supplies cost for 1 month. And let's put it like that and bring it down. Now let's just do something. Well, first remember that D38 we don't want to change. It's always going to be 13.7%. So why don't we, when we do our formula, where am I? When we do our formula, let's highlight that, do our F4 trick, say okay, now it's permanent, and let's copy that all the way across. Ooh, what went wrong? I must have done something wrong. Let's see here. D38. Oh, I know what I did. Look at what I did. I'm a dummy. Now look at what you can do in Excel, which is nice. I'm going to go back, arrow, back. This reverses what you just did. Reversed it again. So I took out the anchor there. I put the anchor on the wrong one. It was down there. Okay. And F4. Hit enter. Now I can take it and drag it across. Okay. And notice that it's different numbers. That's because here we had that revenue was increasing for those 6 months, and then it stayed the same, so it was flat. So the formula seems to be working. It's always good to, like, when you do a formula, is to think of what you thought the results were going to be and see if it does. Now, what we can do just to test ourselves, this just takes the supply number and the revenue number and divides. Let's see if it stayed the same. It did. Okay, great. So we know that worked. Okay, let's go back up here, go over to our assumption, and say, great, we are all set. Insurance and lease expense will remain constant and not increase. So insurance and lease. Let's go over here. Okay, here's my insurance and here's my lease. And it says it's going to stay the same, so we can go and divide it by 12. Whoops, what happened there? Divide by 12 and take this one and divide by 12. So that's my monthly cost. We want to anchor these cells right here. And we hit enter. And we want to anchor these cells right there. Okay. Whoops. I'm sorry. Enter. Okay. And since we want them to be like this format, go like that. Whoops. Sorry. Watch those crosshairs and then pull them all the way across. Don't override the formulas here that we have in the total column. But there we go. So there. That looks good. Now, let's highlight ones. Well, we can highlight or look at what the total was. And it's 4518. 4518. And what's going on here? What do we have here? Oh, look at that. F46. Now, I would have expected that to be the same number as this, and it's not. So I must have a formula area. This is saying F46 to O46. And if I slide this here, you can see on my formula I didn't pick up the whole thing. That was bad. Now, since I did that, I know I copied this down a lot of places. I have to check this. And instead of just going through and checking it all over the place, I might just know that it's right now. Copy it up. See, I must have been wrong there too. Okay, that's terrible. And it's because we only went to the February column. So we'll take this and copy this. Paste that. Okay, that one is adding these. That one's adding those. These two are our problem too. Let's paste those. This one is adding just that. And this one's doing the same thing. So I apologize. I hope I didn't steer you too wrong there. I apologize. I'm going to double check. D to O, D to O, D to O. D to O, D to O, D to O, D O, D O, D O, D O, and D O. Okay. Well, I'm glad we caught that. That would have been a terrible mistake. Terrible. Be embarrassing. Okay. So, this one is now done. Okay. Bad debt expense as a percent of net patient revenues remain the same. Okay, let's look at bad debt. Now we know what bad debt is. That's what people we were not able to collect. Let's do the same thing. Provision for bad debt. It was this 2,000. Let's go down here. Type in this. Bad debt as percent of patient revenue. Okay, go back to there. Take this bad debt right here, divide this by net patient revenue, get whatever the percent is, And we'll change it to a percent sign and make it a couple of decimal points. 1.33%. Not a bad debt percent. And now let's go to our bad debt provision. Take this. Oops. That's not right. In there, we would take this net patient revenue times the 1.33%, and that is that 168. Just make it a little like that. The C92 gets anchored. I should be able to pull this right here, get a little larger number because my revenue increased slightly, and pull it all the way across. And there we go. And we get the 2097. Excellent. And if we want, we can just pull this number across here to double check. And it's perfect. It stayed at 1.33% each month. Now, that's an interesting number to budget. I mean, that can go up and down, but it's surprising how consistent it does stay. Okay, now we can highlight that one. Short-term investments is rolled over each quarter and earns an annual rate of 3% and is paid to Sunnyvale monthly. A short-term investment is rolled over. So that means that every time we make the investment, it's a short term. It always just gets reinvested back in the same investment. And it earns an annual rate of 3%. Annual rate, not a monthly rate, but an annual rate. So let's go over here and look at short-term investments. Oh, okay. Short-term investments up here. We've got this $10,000. And it's going to go up every month by 3% divided by 12. Because it's going up that, but it's going to be calculated on the prior months. So let's just start here. We're going to go like this because that was our ending balance at 12/31. So at the end of the next month, it stayed in there, and it earned 3%. That times 1.03 to include the original amount plus an additional 3% divided by 12. There we go. Now, does that make sense to me? Does not, and that's because we got to fix this formula. Got to go like this. We got to go like this. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I think it does make sense the more I think about it. There we go. So, and then that's the interest on it, and then we've got to add the whoops, that would, okay. What we have to do is take this, all that, plus this. There we go. What I did is I found 3% of that, and then 3% divided by 12, and then added in the 10,000 back again. Okay. Okay. And I think I got to think about this for a moment. You know what? I think I screwed that up, or messed that up. Excuse me. I was trying to get too much ahead of myself. So let's just start all over again. Let's talk about that. It's going to go up 3%. So that times 0.03 divided by 12. That's how much it's going to increase. I've got to take that and add it to the 10,000. Or the beginning one. Plus that. There we go. There, that makes more sense. And let's see if I do that. See, each month it's going to go up like that. I'm taking the months before, adding, because I'm making interest on interest. It's called compounding interest. We'll go all the way across to here. And that's where we end up with our interest for that. Now what's going to be interesting later on, this increase here is going to be, each month of the change is going to be interest income. Okay, so let's see here. Short-term is rollover 3%. That's what we just did there. That was that one. So now we're done with that. Long-term investment remains the same, but earns an annual rate of 5% and is paid to Sunnyvale monthly. Okay, long-term. Let's go over to here. Look at the long-term. And long-term investment, here it is. Okay, it's 5% annually, so we could do this times 0.05 and get that number. And let me see here, here's where we are, got that number, and plus the beginning. Whoops, let me see here. C12 times 0.5%, and then we get, so here we go, we're almost there. We've got to take, we took the full 5%, we've got to divide that by 12, and there we go. There we go. And there we go. And I think we can do the same thing all the way across. There we go. Okay. Excellent. So now let's go to our next assumption. Our next assumption is short-term notes payable are paid down at $50,000 per month to principal. Interest rate on outstanding balance principal is 7% annually. Okay, hang on here. We'll get right into that one. Okay, so again, it's going to be short-term notes payable are paid down at $50,000 per month. So now when we pay it down, what's on your balance sheet is your amount you owe, not the amount you owe and the interest. We're not going to do accrued interest on that. We're just going to show it going down $50,000 each month. Okay, let's go back here. And notes payable. Okay, let's just take short-term notes payable minus 50. Well, we'll just leave it 50 because it's in thousands. And right across like that. Okay, what we're going to do right now is, hold on here, we're going to take look at the next assumption. Short-term payable 50,000. Okay, we'll get into this in 1 second. What I think I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And what I'm probably going to do is start up a second video with this on the Excel. Now the reason I'm going to do that is it takes an awful long time to upload when the bigger they get. So this will be part 1, and then part 2 will be following right after it. Okay? See you soon.